Hey, welcome everyone to our podcast, No Exaggeration. We're just here with, I've got a special guest called Chris. He's a good mate of mine. And the reason why I've got Chris on here is basically Chris has done a qualification and certificate in pastoral counselling. Yep. It's right there. Yep. And for one of the things he had to do in order to finish it off was kind of have a session with someone. Yep. And I was one of those guys that had a session with Chris, and if anyone knows me, I'm the opposite of someone who wants to do counselling, and basically, the opposite of all that. But after we done the session, the benefits of it was so amazing, so I can't even really explain how good it was, that I thought we have to do an episode of this, because I know so many people like me that wouldn't want to do it, but the benefits are life-changing, I think. But yeah, so do you want to just give us a intro about yourself, Chris, before we get started?
Yeah, I'm Chris, as Malachi said, and so Shalom, Bula Vinaka, and if you haven't picked up on it, I'm New Zealand born, but I'm the son of a Jewish father and Fijian mother, and I'm married to a beautiful wife, and her name is Melissa, and she's Māori Cook Island. And between us we have three children, 3 sons, 3 fruit salad kids, and they're downstairs running around. And I when I sort of do stuff like this and get an opportunity to do stuff with the public, I make it known that I'm just not an individual, but I come with my whole family, my whole household, and they're a real joy and a real delight to my life. And yeah, it's a real honour to be here to do this podcast and this video with Malachi, and I'm really excited about the questions and just I guess where the discussion will end up, because I think it's a good discussion to have, and then hopefully there's some stuff in there that people take away. Yeah.
Cool. So counselling, we'll get started. So counselling, right? The way I look at counselling is that like I was saying before, I'm the opposite of the type of person who would want to do counselling, let alone pay for it. Yeah. But the only reason why I did it and I wanted to do it was because I knew you, and that I trust you a lot. Yeah. So what about yourself before the course? Yeah. What was your view on quote unquote counselling?
Yeah. So leading up to the course, like my perspective had already changed before I had taken the course. I wouldn't have taken it if I didn't think it was beneficial to myself and those who are close to me. But I guess the years leading up to it, like I probably had a perception of counselling that it was kind of weird and odd, and that's for people who need help in a week.
That's the main word, weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just odd. It wasn't part of just my world growing up, and just I guess my cultural background, my family background, just the world I grew up in. It was just something really foreign and something that other people did. But I guess the years leading up to it, probably my first exposure to it was just relationship counselling. So I really wanted to value my marriage with Melissa, and so we several years back we decided on one of our anniversaries to do a counselling session.
So this is after you got married?
Yeah, after we got married.
Did you do one before you got married?
No, wouldn't have dreamed of it.
Yeah. I think you started on that.
But we thought, we want to invest in our marriage, and we want more tools to be able to just do marriage well. So we gave it a spin. Yeah. And I thought it was really beneficial. I just took a few little tools away from that one session we did, and I thought, oh man, it's not as weird and as scary as I first thought it was. Yeah. And so that was my real first exposure. And then I just started engaging with different people who worked in that realm, and attended a seminar or two of people who were trained counsellors who offered just seminars and courses, and I found just a lot of material really beneficial for me, and just how I did relationships, and so that sort of just changed my perception of counselling altogether.
So so leading up to the counselling, that you had with your marriage, you were still feeling a bit weird, even leading up to it, that first session.
Yeah, I mean, close to the first session, I was just really open. Like I got into a stage where I was just like, I'm not going to die. Like, you know, what's the worst that could happen? And Melissa and I were in agreement that, you know, what's the worst that could happen? It could be really beneficial. And so, leading up to it, I was just pretty open and was really neither here nor there kind of thing by that stage. Yeah.
You know what's crazy? Just off topic. Because you know Mavis's cousin, she's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
And her brother's a lawyer. And then we were just
family.
bro. Anyway, like we were talking at our church because we go to the same church. That they were saying, they were telling me I should do a podcast with the lawyer. He's a lovely guy. And then the doctor, who's his sister, goes, talked about blah blah blah. What's this podcast about? We talked about it, and then I had you in mind. And then I told her what it was about, and then I said, actually, I've got a good friend of mine, and I want to do one on counselling. And she said that she goes to counselling regularly. Not regularly, but she does go to counselling, and she said it's the best thing that you could go to.
Interesting.
I was really shocked, bro, because you know, like when you said your view on counselling before, I have a feeling that a lot of people would look at it like that, probably we watch too much TV and see what it's like on TV, but I was really shocked. But that was interesting for it, and especially a doctor who's in and out of hospital, all that kind of stuff. But she was on the same page that it'll be beneficial for everybody.
I mean, in saying that, and I mean, good on her for sharing with you. Like, you know, we just don't know what's going on below the surface of a lot of people.
That's what she said.
We just don't know. And people can give the appearance that they have it all together, but you just don't know what people have been through and people's backgrounds. And one thing that has been beneficial for me as I've done training in pastoral counselling is actually I start to see people that way too. You know, I guess years before, you know, people would, you know, treat you bad or cross a boundary or say something that would offend you, and you know, you just think you'd label them or you'd get. But for me, not all the time, but sometimes I'm just like,
you can't take that back.
Sometimes I when people, I don't know, step out of line or do something that's, you know, untoward, you know, sometimes now I go, I wonder how they arrived there. You know, I wonder what's gone on behind the scenes and what's happened to them for them to react that way or underreact or whatever. And so even that in itself's changed my reaction about what people go through.
Has that helped you with, because I know at work you've got a few people under you, does that help with work?
Absolutely, because I mean, I have quite a high pressured role, and I have a lot of people that report to me and look up to me and they look to me to lead. And so trying to deal with all those pressures and manage all those pressure points, you know, like I feel like I'm in a fishbowl sometimes where I was looking on. And so I guess one of the things doing counselling training has done for me is helped me self-regulate emotions and thoughts, you know. And, you know, just little tools that have helped me just to manage that and just to manage my own emotional intelligence and how I view situations and not to take things personally and just all that sort of stuff. So
nice.
Definitely has helped.
Cool. A massive thing with both islanders is that I don't know what it's like for other cultures. They might not, because we're not the only ones that don't talk. There are other cultures that don't talk. But for us, we know for sure it's not normal to have a counselling session or stuff like that.
It's pretty foreign language actually.
Bro. But because there's a guy I know, right? He lives by himself, and he was born in the islands, but he moved here when he was I can't remember, like 8. And so the thing I like about that is because he knows both worlds. He knows what it's like to grow up in the islands, and he knows what it's like to grow up here. And then just not long ago, he went and got some counselling. But a story that my mate told me was that because he didn't grow up with his biological dad, and when his stepdad moved on, he told me they were having dinner with his family, and then a relative of his just said, that guy that left isn't your real dad, he's your stepdad, he was real dad somewhere else. And they carried on eating, and that's as far as conversation as they got about that issue.
Wow.
So he lived with that for a long time, and then he probably lived with that for about over 15 years, and then he got counselling for it, and he told me that it was the best thing that he could ever do, because when Islanders say, we don't talk about it, blah blah blah, he's born and raised there, so he knows for sure that we do not talk about it. But for him to get that kind of opened up my eyes a bit, that it's really that there are people that really don't talk, no matter, they might not seem like they're not talking to you, but they're not talking full stop. And then so that was something crazy that I remember coming up with.
That's nuts, man.
So do you what's your take on our culture not talking?
That's a great question. So I mean, and this is my own personal experience, and my own observations, and some of these statements are blanket, but this is just generally speaking. I think I heard this saying once from a guy that I respect, and he's really wise, and he said, no culture is without its blind spots. Every culture has blind spots, and the context of what he was saying was that we all have different values and different diversities in our culture, and we can all learn off one another, like as culturally. So being culturally diverse and engaging with one another, it's a great way just to learn different things that we value and different things that we might not do right, and so on and so forth. And one of the things in Pacific culture, generally speaking, that we do well is we're a culture that really honours. We really like to honour people. We really like to when we come together, take the lower position and try and remain humble, not try to puff ourselves up, and so we're a culture where there's humility, where there's a lot of honour that's bestowed, and I think that's a really, really cool, really beautiful thing. But the other thing is that what we don't talk about, and what is actually a bit of an undercurrent in Pacific culture and households, is that we live in quite a shame-based environment. And what I mean by that is that, when you step out of line, or, if you're perceived to be disrespectful or dishonouring, and break these unspoken values and rules, man, that you can get scorned, or you can get excommunicated, and no one will speak to you, and so on and so forth. And so what I guess what I'm trying to say is, one of the things in sort of Pacific homes that can cause us not to speak up or speak out is that we're so afraid of bringing shame to our family, bringing shame to not following protocols, so on and so forth. But you contrast that, often Māori and Pacific people get grouped together in many discussions. But actually there's some real distinctive things about Māori and Pacific culture that are quite different. And you contrast that with, my wife's Māori. I've met a lot of her family. I've interacted with different Māori families. And within Māori culture, actually what's really quite obvious to me and being valued is everybody has a voice, no matter how young you are or how old you are. To have a voice and to have a say, it's quite highly valued in Māori homes.
Every single person?
Generally speaking, yeah. I mean, and that can come with its own consequences, like, boundaries might be crossed. But one thing I notice is that you can get up and have your say, and if you have a problem with someone, they'll say it to your face. Whereas the contrast that with Pacific environments, where we're so conscious of breaking protocol, of bringing, dishonouring, of not being humble, we don't say a lot. And the silence almost speaks 1,000 words.
True.
And so for me, growing up in that sort of environment, and then experiencing my wife's family and her culture, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. And so I guess what I'm saying is that one of the things we actually need to do better in Pacific culture is try and smash this thing I call a shame-based environment. And what I mean by that is, like, do you know what the opposite of shame is?
Pride.
No, the opposite. Like if shame is what's on the opposite end of shame, what would be the contrast to shame?
Shame. I'm ashamed. I'm unashamed.
Yeah. But what's another?
It's not proud.
No. Well, the opposite of shame is innocence. Shame tells us that I'm guilty, I'm under condemnation, I'm ashamed of who I am or what I've done.
Yeah.
Whereas innocence means I'm good enough the way I am. Means no matter what I've done wrong, it doesn't undermine the fact that I'm still good enough inside.
Yeah.
So my behaviour comes from me, but it's not the essence of me.
Yeah.
It's not my value.
Yeah.
And so what we need to learn is that, particularly with kids, because we learn this from a young age, is kids. When we're correcting our kids and disciplining our kids, we need to actually separate their behaviour from how much we value and love them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've experienced this, but when I grew up, like you'd be like, oh man, you're such an idiot.
Yeah.
You're useless. You're so lazy.
Yeah.
Don't be such a puff.
Yeah.
It's not only in Pacific homes, but it's actually more with boys too, Pacific men.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you imagine a kid hearing that. As an adult, you laugh it off.
Yeah.
But what a kid hears is that at the core of who they are,
they're this and that.
Yeah, they're not good enough. They're this and that, and they wear the label. They wear it into adulthood. And so a lot of times when I meet with men, Pacific men, and we sit together and do this, sometimes it's just about handing them back their innocence, letting them know that even though you experience these things, at the essence of you are still good enough.
Yeah, true.
And so that's something I find in Pacific culture that and it manifests like that, particularly amongst Pacific men, is this shame-based culture we actually need to address, and we do things like mocking and scoffing and teasing quite a lot.
Yeah.
But we don't actually realise what it can do.
Especially with the younger ones.
Especially with our kids.
Because even though as an adult, it'll still get you every now and then.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, scoffing and mocking is might be harmless, but it can really hurt. It can really, and it can be actually a mask for you trying to protect yourself.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
nice, man. So with people that are wanting to see a counsellor, are there would there be any advice you'd give, for them to, I don't know, any kind of advice that you'd give to someone before they see a counsellor?
Yeah, I mean, I would, if you're looking to seek a counsellor, I'd probably recommend that you talk to someone who can recommend a good counsellor or someone.
Okay, so all's not for all.
No. Like, I mean, as with anything good, it can be counterfeited, or there can be some stuff out there that's not so good.
Yeah.
And particularly in this realm, there can be.
Yeah.
And so I would probably ask someone if they know anyone or can recommend anyone that they think might be helpful for their situation or what they might be looking to achieve.
With your experience you've had so far, I know you wouldn't definitely know, but could you see how someone could use this in a bad way, being a counsellor?
A counsellor would?
Yeah.
I'd like to hope not.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
because people come to you and become very vulnerable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
just like anything, I guess.
Yeah, like, one thing that I become conscious of when I do this with anyone is that the person that's coming to see me doesn't grow a codependency on me. Oh, okay. And what I mean by that is that the reason they're coming to see me is that initially they might come to see me a little bit like frequently or more often than not.
Yep.
But that's with the goal over time where they don't need me anymore eventually.
Yeah.
And so if a counsellor is just, if you're constantly going back and it seems like they're sort of thriving on you coming to see them, that's not really healthy. But I mean, I don't personally know anyone that would do that.
Are you wearing your perfume when you're doing it?
Calvin Klein.
That's something I didn't think of, being dependent on you that much.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if they're in a relationship kind of thing,
Yeah, what are you saying there?
You're saying some people would get so dependent.
Yeah.
But would it be worse if they're already in a relationship?
Oh, outside of the counselling?
Yeah, like it's not in a dodgy way, but in a way like instead of working it out, they'll keep coming back to you.
Yeah, I think, with counselling, the goal is to be able to equip them with tools to be able to manage their situation better.
So that's the goal,
Yeah, that's the goal, and a lot of it is actually strengthening and thickening what they already have. They just don't know.
Yeah. So
a good counsellor will be able to help identify that, and depending on what sort of counselling skills they have.
Nice. So, like we were talking about before, and I'm saying from my own self that before we had our session, counselling would be the last thing I'd want to do. I would say, I would guess that more than half wouldn't want to, as opposed to half wanting to.
Yeah.
Why do you think people lean towards more no than yes when it can be so beneficial?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's probably multiple answers. And
yeah.
There's probably more qualified people out there than me that would be able to answer that better.
Yeah.
But from my observation and my experience, there's multiple reasons, and I think it's how we've sort of grown up and been influenced. For me, like, you hear language that's used within your family environment and within just normal society around, like, particularly towards men, we use language like harden up and, take a concrete pill, build a bridge and get over it, go and have a cry, don't be such a girl, and all that stuff, it actually contributes to the wider pool of why people won't be vulnerable and go and see a counsellor. So it's to do with, family dynamics, what we value in our homes, what we don't value, kids take that on and take it into adulthood. I think it's just normal society, what we might see in the media or what we might see in movies, popular movies. And I think probably, in particularly in New Zealand and Kiwi culture, we highly value the fact that we're independent and that, we have this can-do attitude in Kiwi culture, like, they call it number eight wire and all that sort of stuff. And so we're quite proud of the fact that we don't rely on people.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's all these things within our culture and within our sphere that tell us that, only weird people do that and only weak people do that, and why would you go and do that? That's unheard of. So I think they're all contributing factors to why we might not even give it a look in at all.
Straight up. Well, you mentioned harden up. Is there a time and place to say harden up?
Yeah,
because I love harden up, but I know that, bro, like you said at the beginning, you just don't know what someone's going through.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. It depends your relationship and the context, and
so yes.
Yeah, I mean, as a friendly banter with someone, if you're having a friendly touch game or something like that, if it's friendly banter, then I don't see the problem.
So
with
there's a time and place.
Yeah. But I if someone's really going through something, I don't think it's appropriate. So I guess the short answer is yes, but it's all contextual.
So one of the reasons why I don't like counselling, I do like it now, but that I didn't like counselling was that probably I watch too much TV and too much social media, is that the picture I get of counselling sometimes is someone just talking about themselves, loving talking about themselves, making themselves the victim of everything, kind of thing. Is that even real? I mean, it would be real, like, even on its own, even without bringing counselling into it, but like, what's your take on that? You know what I mean? Like, do you have to be aware to monitor a session that it doesn't go that way, or
as the counsellor? Yeah. So I mean, in my opinion and my experience, like, people come to you because they want to take something away. They want to find out what's going on. They want to know why they behave in a certain way, why they reach for this, why they underfunction here, why they react to this person. So if someone's coming to you with a presenting issue, of course you need to hear them, because people will trust you if they feel that you get them. But ultimately you need to set goals around actually what do you want to do with our time and where do you want to get to. And that's up to the counsellor who comes, and it's up to the counsellor to ask the right questions and set the right goals.
True.
And so for me, like, I would do goal setting, and then I would ask them things like, what do you want to achieve with our time? What would you like to take away? If we ended up here, would that be success in your eyes? And then you test it at the end. You're like, well, what will you take away? What did you find helpful? You do, and you're constantly asking those things. And another reason why I would do that is because during the session, like you said, people can just go off on tangents and they can end up anywhere and just talk about anything and just ramble on. But if you set goals and agree them together, then you can actually quite easily ask, is this a tangent? I want to work towards what you wanted to get to. Let's get back on track.
True.
So people can ramble on, but I think it's important that you actually set clear goals and boundaries.
And you can direct everything, rather than just letting loose and
yeah, well,
you go everywhere.
It's up to, it's about balancing the power, and it's not about the counsellor sort of dominating.
Okay.
But it's about asking the counsellor the client what they want to achieve and where do they want to go, and they go, I want to end up here, and then so as the counsellor you're like, well, we've agreed to this, let's go in that direction.
Yep. Did like you said before, when people come to you, they come wanting to, I guess, answer questions and find out certain things. Is there what would the benefit be of someone seeing a counsellor, or is there a benefit over venting to a friend that they know? Like, is there a benefit when someone goes to someone that they aren't so personally attached to? Do you know what I mean? Like, because that was one thing I kind of thought of before, was like, you don't need counselling if you just talk with a friend, vent out everything, talk to a sibling, you can do the same thing. But is there an actual difference? I mean, I know there's a difference, but what would the differences be?
Yeah, so both are true and both are helpful, and I would encourage people to do both.
Oh, okay. So it's not one or the other company?
It's not one or the other, and I think it's a false choice if you think it is.
Yeah.
It's good to have close friends to be able to talk to and be yourself around, but ask yourself, the reason people go to a counsellor is to really dig down deep and find out why. Where does this come from, and that takes a certain set of skills. Yeah. But I mean, there's different people who have different relationships within your life that are all beneficial. Yeah. There's your friends and your peers. There's people you see as mentors. There's people you see as people that might supervise you in certain roles or certain environments. Yeah. People who offer you pastoral care, and people that you would own counsellors, and so they're all different roles, and they offer different sets of skills that all contribute to just wanting to talk things through and work things out.
What does the pastoral and pastoral care mean?
So pastoral, like when I think of pastoral, it's actually coming alongside someone and just caring for them and being there for them, and counselling and caring are a little bit different, but in saying that, counselling is a form of care.
When you were doing the course, did you have any expectations of what you would take away from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. They actually asked us that.
At the beginning?
Oh, at the end, it was really funny. They said, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you were starting the course, what would you tell yourself? And then one person said, run.
No one laughed.
But it was just interesting, because they asked questions like that, and you're like, oh, wow. And, so what was the question again?
Did you have any expectations? Can you remember any while you were doing it, like in the early stages?
Yeah, my expectation was actually to grow in the leadership role in my business.
Oh, I mean.
So my primary reason for going in was I actually wanted to grow as a leader.
So you wanted a pay rise? No.
Maybe. But I just wanted to be a better leader.
Yeah.
And I thought that growing in emotional intelligence would help me become a better leader.
And of course it would, eh?
Yeah, of course, definitely. All the good leaders, if you think of a good leader, just generally speaking, they're actually quite emotionally intelligent and socially intelligent. So,
have any of your work relationships, especially with people under you, improved?
I guess that's for them to answer.
Yeah. Oh, well, like to you.
To me, yeah, I guess I just try to... Yeah, I guess I'm just probably more self-aware in relating to people, and I still get frustrated with situations and different people, but I guess I'm more aware, and when I'm more aware, I can actually do something about it. Like I can take responsibility for my role rather than blaming and naming and deflecting. So
I remember there was one part. I remember I had like 2 or 3 takeaways from our session, and one of them I always remember is that we talked about the situation, and then I remember I was telling you the reaction I had in that situation was always automatic. It was, I'd always react really angrily. Yeah. But it wasn't, it was buzz, because when we talked about it, I realized it was automatic. I didn't have to get angry. It just snapped like that straight away, and that was really crazy. And then I remember as we went on in the session, one of the takeaways I had was that that was a certain age in your life. I'm 29 now. You're not the same person, or you are the same person, but you're in a position to change, to make some decisions to help that reaction, to not make it so. That was awesome, eh? So, how did you? Like, can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, what I sort of did with you, and I've done with me and others, is like, you know, some of our reactions to situations, and like you said, automatic reactions, actually a lot of them are not about the situation.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But it's more of what's going on inside of us and our perception of the situation, the lens which we see it through.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's actually driven from when foundations are laid in childhood. So, you know, from the age of 1 to 7, we're just like sponges, we're just learning and soaking it up. And then sort of after the age of 7, we start to prune back, you know, and we have automatic moods and automatic emotions and automatic things for different situations. And the thing is, though, like, when we learn quite, I guess when we're young, we're not only are we developing physically and intellectually, but our emotions are developing too. And when we're put in situations as kids that we're not emotionally ready to handle, they can have quite a deep impact on us and even traumatize us.
True.
And so what happens is our brain actually can remember that situation and store it in the filing cabinet of our brain.
Yeah.
And so what might happen is, if we're faced with a situation that we perceive to be similar to the one where we first experienced it, our brain can just take something and dump it on us, and we can side with the emotion without actually challenging it. So we have automatic thoughts and automatic emotions, and sometimes when we've experienced situations that were really hard for us to handle as a kid, you know, our brain remembers it. And so, like, for me, you know, I talked about the shame-based environment, and so I grew up in quite a shame-based environment where whenever I did anything wrong, I got scorned and I got labelled. And
we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Bro, most, if not every islander can relate to that.
But the thing is with that, the only time I got affirmation or attention is when I really did something that they approved of. Yeah. And so I had to sort of perform to get affection. And so I avoided being blamed, but I constantly overperformed to compensate to get love. And so what that transformed into for me into adulthood was I always avoided feeling blamed. Like, I hate feeling blamed.
You just don't want to get
And so I'll overcompensate. Like, I'll overwork situations and make sure there's no room where I'd be at fault, because I believe inside that it's dangerous to be at fault, because that's what I experienced as a kid. And so those emotions that you learn in some of those situations, you carry them into adulthood, and they actually echo into your present situation.
But, like, because you know how you were saying, because I've heard that before, where they say, you know, when you go through something as a kid that you aren't ready to handle, you know how you say you store it at the back of your mind. You know, I used to hear that, I'd be like, oh, whatever. But the scary thing was, when we had our session, was that it really is automatic, the reaction, and I can, every single time I come across that, it really is automatic, and like, it's closely feeling you're not really in control, like the way you know what I mean?
It's just so familiar.
That's the word, familiar.
And it's just because it's so familiar, and it can be because we've never known another way. That can just be that simple sometimes. It's so familiar that there's no other way, there can't be another way to see the situation. So it's just a familiar feeling that we just automatically side with.
But I still take away what we talked about, you know. You're not the same age, you're not the same situation, you are who you are now, and you have an opportunity to change your reaction there.
You can choose your reaction.
That's what I took away from it too, which was awesome.
So self-awareness is one aspect of it, is just being aware of, you know, what's going on inside you and choosing to side with it or not. You know, that's the beginning to stepping into the direction of emotional intelligence.
It sounds hard though, eh?
Oh, it is very hard, especially if you've done it for so long. You're just conditioned to react that way in a situation, and then when you try and change it up, it feels weird.
But like, it's what a good feeling though, that it doesn't have to always, you know. I remember another thing we were talking about before, is that do you remember when we were talking about, there was like in an environment, and there were certain things that help a child be, it wasn't successful, but I mean, like, and one of them was like regularity. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Can you explain that again?
Yeah. So one thing I learned in my training was that we're all born into this world with really deep needs, and those deep and we have these deep needs that we initially look to the big people in our life to reflect back to us or to affirm in us. And when I mean big people, I mean parents specifically, but some of us grew up with grandparents and uncles and aunts that we considered quite significant big people. So kids are constantly looking to these big people just to value them and to affirm in them these deep needs that they're looking to have reflected back to them. And one of those deep needs that we spoke about was every child has a deep need for security.
That's the one, security.
Yeah. And what security is the sense that they're safe, that there's a sense of predictability and manageability, and that they have the resources to cope with what's going to happen next because they know what's going to happen next. So kids need familiarity, kids need rhythms, kids need to know that things are in control.
That's the one that blew me away, and I wouldn't have remembered it if it wasn't for how you said predictability, that they got in, not exactly, but they'll know in the morning they're going to get up and there'll be a house where they have breakfast and stuff like that. And then because routine, they thrive in routine.
Absolutely. Kids need it. That's one of the deep needs kids need. They need an environment that's predictable, that's stable, that they have a general sense that it's safe. And when the kids have that, they don't have to be on edge and get anxious and worry about what's going to happen next. And so people who might not have had that, it might manifest in adulthood where they constantly have to be in control of things, like, that to feel out of control, it would just be unbearable for them. And so they have this constant need to actually control situations and control people, because to feel out of control, well, that would just be unbearable for them.
So, when you say predictability as well, does that include like moving house to house or like living with different people all the time kind of thing?
Yeah, that certainly doesn't help. That would certainly put a question mark over their deep need for security.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so as much as we can as parents, we need to try and create safe and stable environments where kids, have a fairly, good idea that they know what's going to happen next. Because if they don't, then they'll start to, it'll end up pretty shaky for them.
But on the other end, when it is there, they can thrive, eh?
Absolutely,
That's me.
And I think you actually spoke to that, that stability and safety, would have helped you in some situations.
I think it really helps because we've both got kids, and now you know what to look out for, Like, I didn't know about the security one at all. But when I think about it, it makes sense. And then you can even see it when you put things in a routine. And it's not just routine like go to sleep or that kind of stuff, but just having a solid family. You know what I mean? And then they've got that area to be safe and to what is it got to do?
And I think another aspect of that is, there's so much peer pressure out there as kids grow up and go into teenage years.
True.
Home needs to be a safe haven that they can escape to. You think
escape away from.
Because that's where kids just get caught up into all sorts of stuff.
True.
They look for environments where they're accepted and where they can have some sort of stability. I mean, it can manifest in so many different ways, but home needs to be a place where they can escape to and come to and know that I'm safe here.
Nice. With you being a counsellor, have you ever come across a situation, or how were you prepped during the course when you come across a situation that you don't know how to answer?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you can't know all the answers. I mean, the default position to go back to that I was taught was just to go back to listening. It depends on what it is. Like, there's a limitation to my skills, and there's certain areas that I can't go into just because they require a certain set of skills. And so what you just default back to proactive listening and hearing, and making sure that you're not, because you don't want to have this panic attack in front of them.
I can have a refund.
So you default back to just listening and
a lot of the time, sorry to cut you off, bro. I think I'll speak for myself, where you're too busy trying to think of the answer that you're not listening properly.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of their sentence, it's like, I know what it is. True, but so you go back to actively listening.
Yep. And you ask for clarity, and you summarize what they're saying. You reflect back to them. Am I hearing you right? Is this what you meant? Can you tell me about that? That's all part of listening.
Cool. You know, in terms of, I'll go wider, not just counselling, but what would you say is a casual? Counselling sounds professional.
Yep.
It sounds institutional.
Yeah.
What's a casual? What do people do casually that's like counselling? Is it just venting kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I think you alluded to having a good friend to be able to unload to and talk to and process things with.
Yeah.
That's a form, I guess, of counselling, if you will.
Yeah.
But counselling in and of itself is quite specific. You go to a counsellor for a specific reason.
Yeah,
but
true.
there's multiple other things you can do that overlap with counselling.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. And I certainly think having a good friend or close friends to be able to reach out to share stuff with, to be vulnerable with, it's really healthy. I call that wise vulnerability. You don't just leave it. You open up yourself to everyone. That would be silly, because you don't know what people would do with that.
Yeah.
But wise vulnerability is going to people that you trust with your stuff, and that you know they have your best interest in heart.
So in terms of what we just spoke about, not venting, but other forms of counselling, do you think that counselling is necessary, or can people live without not sharing stuff and being vulnerable?
Yeah, I don't think you have to see a counsellor. I don't. Yeah. Gosh, how do I answer that? I think what I've learned around Well, put it this way: if you're in a marriage, and it's a very, very close relationship. I mean, you have kids together, you do all sorts together, and you're not vulnerable in there. I don't think it's going to end up in a very good place. If you don't let your guard down.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can go through life without being open and vulnerable and honest.
Yeah.
I just don't think. I don't think you can have a proper relationship with someone if you don't have vulnerability.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask, because we've got, and I think I've been through it myself too, not hard out, but probably maybe, but where you go through life and you don't open up to anybody, but then you're doing something like, or some people could be drinking and then they let it all out, kind of thing. Like, what do you call that? And did you guys go through that in your course? Like, when you don't do it, when you shut off everything, and then there's a time where it just all comes out. And it doesn't have to be drinking. Like, it could be any.
Yeah, I mean that's. I would think that's a little bit unhealthy, because I think it goes to show that we
do need it, eh?
We do need it. People want to be vulnerable. People want to be in relationships. I mean, we're actually hardwired for relationships. We're born into this world, and right from our first breath, we latch onto our mums and eventually our dads, and we actually deep down desire to have a relationship from a very young age.
Yeah.
And I think if people don't have those healthy attachments at a young age, that it'll start to manifest in not opening up, and then just being blurted out in ways that just are unhealthy and unhelpful to them.
That is a good way of saying it. We probably do want to be vulnerable at one stage or another. So I asked you this before. When you're counselling someone, obviously you take what they say. What they say, you take it. How do you balance out when your common sense says something like, I don't know, is it true? And I'm being extreme here. I'm not saying you got to be judgmental, but I'm saying someone said, someone who might not be the richest might say something like, they've got $1 billion house, and that's what they're saying to you in their session, $1 billion, and I think most of us will be, I don't know, how do you balance it out, and how do you safeguard yourself when you come across that? Because if you take it, you know what I mean, eh?
So, I mean, a couple of things on that. one thing that we're told when we did our training was that, you know, everybody has an agenda. We even have, you know, none of us are agenda free. I mean, if you're someone of faith, even God has an agenda.
As nice as it sounds, I don't have an agenda. We all got it. Whether can it be good? It can be good agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a loving agenda.
Yeah.
And it's just to be aware of it. And, you know, if I guess in what you're saying there, you know, if someone says something and you know it's untrue, or you know it's going to be harmful, or you know it's just like, oh man, what are you doing? Or what are you saying?
Yeah.
You have to do it. You can't just come out and say, well, you know, it's not going to work if you just tell them off. Like, nobody likes to be spoken to like a kid.
Yeah.
And so you always start with the listening. Always start with empathizing, proactive listening. You come from a place like, okay, I get what you're going through.
Yeah.
You know, they got to have a sense that you're in it with them. And it's from that place that you start to spell out the consequences of their actions. Like, I get what you're going through, we're in it together, have you thought about this, have you thought about this? And you just start to spell up scenarios of natural consequences of what they're saying. Yeah. And it's up to them to pick it up or not. But you have to do it from a place that, okay, I hear you. Yeah. Or else they're just not gonna listen, or they're not gonna see the error of their ways.
Yeah.
True.
Cool. So, you know, with my past experience, and it might be for others, you know, it might be true to say that I probably wouldn't want to go to counselling of any form, because I know that, you know, no matter how bad it might look for where I'm at, I know that I'm at fault somewhere, and I don't want to get to the point where I see someone to counsel me, because I know that either way I will have to own up to my actions. Yeah. Or, you know, what's your take on that? Is that true for other? I mean, have you found that to be true for some people as well?
Are you saying that people avoid counselling because they have to take responsibility? Is that the question?
Yeah. Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think some people fear responsibility. They fear what would be on the other side of that would mean they'd have to actually own their actions. Yeah. I don't know if people avoid it for that reason, but I mean, good counselling would actually help you see that actually show you what tools you already have and how you can take responsibility and, you know, I guess clean up your side of the street when you're in relationships with people and not blame and deflect. So I think good counselling helps people to take responsibility, and I think maybe people would avoid it if that's what they feared, but I'm not sure if they would even, if they're in that mindset, if they would even think about going to a counsellor. I'm not.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Well, last one, and then I'll let you go. Yeah. I remember we were in our session and we were talking about something, and then there were different things we were going through, and then what you would ask me, if something had a name, what would it be, or if it, did you remember, or if it could say something?
Oh yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah. So sometimes when you're trying to get people to understand what's going on inside them, you might ask someone, what are you feeling, and they might say angry. Yeah. And angry is quite a generic emotion. Like it's not actually a emotion that's an issue. Like it's not a core issue. It's actually what we present. So it's kind of like a mask, or it's kind of like what we use to protect ourselves. We might use anger to protect something inside that's really the issue. And so sometimes, just to understand what's in behind that anger, I might ask, if anger had a voice, what would anger say? And that would begin to actually them actually go through their own self-talk and self-conversations and say, well, anger would say that I don't deserve this. I feel disrespected, and anger would say that, I'm not going to let them get away with this. And it's just a way just to actually help them realise just to slow them down and actually realise, well, this is what's driving it. What you're telling yourself is actually pushing you towards doing that. And so it's really just giving voice to what's actually going on inside them.
Oh, okay. So it's about breaking it down a little bit.
Yeah, it's about breaking it down, about slowing them down and saying, well,
Because I remember that was really helpful. Because I remember when you would ask me that, like, it's just like you're right. It was more like a mask, but then when you asked me that, I had to actually think, why? and then it made more sense when I answered it.
Yeah, it's one other way of naming it is it gives voice to the pain.
Yeah.
So sometimes we just don't have the language to articulate what's really going on inside us.
Yeah.
So questions like that just help give voice to it.
Yeah.
So that we can actually put words to what's really happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Before that was awesome, man. Before I finish this off, was there anything you wanted to say out?
No, I really appreciate doing this with you, and I really appreciate your questions.
You, bro.
Yeah. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate you volunteering when I did my pastoral counselling practical.
Man, that's what I wanted to finish up on, because I think a couple of days later, a couple of my mates came over.
Yeah.
And we all hung out, and then I mentioned it to one of them, and then he was really he was really interested in what I told him about our session.
Yeah.
And the main things that I asked you was what he really gripped on, and ever since then, man, it's changed my mind completely about counselling.
Yeah.
And like you said, I used to look down at it and just think, fuck, this is for nut jobs, bro, not for me. And the words weak and all that would come out. But honestly, man, it's been such a beneficial thing.
Yeah.
So I'm thanking you, bro.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. If anyone who would like to see counselling, can they see you?
I don't know if they wanted to talk. I mean, I've done a certificate in pastoral counselling. I'm not a professional counsellor. But if you had questions about wanting to see a professional counsellor and counsellors that I recommend, then happy to refer you or recommend or just chat. Yeah, that's fine.
No, man, I think anyone who's watching this will know how much of a lovely guy you are, man. So anyone who's listening, the tough person in me saying, bro, you're poor for saying this. Honestly, bro, but it's all good, bro. It really is helpful, because with all that's going on these days, it feels like it's getting, you could say it's getting worse, but you could say it's always been like this. I mean, it's been around for a while, but we got resources like counselling and that available, but anyone out there, I go hard, because this done heaps for me, and like you were saying, it didn't leave me, the good thing was you helped me identify a lot of things, but you didn't solve it for me, but now you've let me know that I can actually solve it, that there are reasons, and more importantly, everything that we went through, you can use it to benefit your kids, and then like you said, with predictability, security, instead of focusing on other stuff like money that definitely helps, but all these things are so important, and especially for the kids.
That's probably one thing I'd want to finish on, is that if you're a parent out there listening, is that if you try and strengthen and just reflect back to your kids how much they mean to you, how much you value them, and just lay really good foundational stuff in their life, it actually contributes to their resiliency when they go into adulthood, and how they handle hard situations, and just self-esteem and self-awareness, just good stable environments with parents that love them and accept them and make sure they're safe and encourage them. That's a really good foundation. And I mean, you talked about the security thing, and for me, as a dad, I struggled with shame growing up, and so for me, I try to be aware of when I'm correcting my kids, that even though at times they do wrong, it's their behaviour needs addressing, not them. They're still accepted and loved by me, and just in that and of itself, just will help them know that even though they might misbehave sometimes, they're not inherently bad. At their core.
And sorry, how you mentioned it helps kids with their resilience. One thing I noticed that, and it's just with a couple of kids that, I noticed the ones that, not every kid who achieves well, I'm not speaking on all of them, but some that I've seen, and then there's a resiliency in them, that it's really good to see. It's not cockiness, it's not arrogant, it's just they're tough, and all of them were from solid families. It's maybe it's cousins that the doctor and that, it's cool that they're doctors and stuff. That's all good, but they've got really good strong families, and it's a man.
Yeah.
So glad that we know now for our kids, eh?
Yeah, it's certainly a massive, it's a massive contributor just to kids doing well and succeeding in life. And the fact is we're all human and we're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And, we just try not to mess up our kids too much.
Bro, we're too late, bro.
Yeah, but certainly a loving home with parents that love and care for their kids, and that's going to be a huge contributor to people being resilient mentally and emotionally when they get older.
Man, and what a benefit to take from counselling, eh?
Yeah.
You get to take all that you've learned, everything, and make sure, try your best not to repeat history.
Yeah, we try.
But yeah, man, thanks again, Chris, bro. It's been awesome. Love you, brother.
Thanks, bro. Love you too.